You probably think you chose your cat. You saw them in a shelter, or on the street, or maybe they just appeared in your life one day, and you decided, yeah, this one's mine. But what if it wasn't really your decision at all? What if long before you ever met, before the visit to the shelter, before the stray walked up, before whatever coincidence brought you two together, your cat was already making their way to you, not as a pet, not just for company, but as something older, something deeper, a sentinel, sent by design, a design you wouldn't fully understand until everything else started falling apart. Because in this life, love is fleeting. Our minds feel fractured. We forget what it means to be whole, but they remember. And when we begin to forget, they come. You call it adoption, but maybe it's more like an ancient reunion, a soul contract, a return. That's what Edgar Cayce believed, back in 1943. If you've ever felt like your cat appeared at the perfect time, not by accident but by something higher, then stay with me. Because what you're about to hear wasn't supposed to be found, but somehow it waited for you. The world was at war, chaos across continents. Humanity, as Cayce described it, had started to forget its own soul. And yet, in a quiet room in Virginia Beach, far from the battlefields, Cayce, the man they called the sleeping prophet, lay back on his couch, just like he'd done hundreds of times before. His breathing slowed, his eyes fluttered. Something shifted in the air, like a doorway opening that wasn't meant to be seen. His secretary, Gladys Davis, sat beside him with her stenograph, hands trembling, not out of fear, but because she knew something was coming. Something different. Cayce had given readings on everything, healing remedies, Atlantis, even Jesus. But what he said that day wasn't about medicine or prophecy. It was about something else entirely, something so ordinary we overlook it. Something soft-footed, quiet, and sleeping in the corners of our homes. The cat. He said the cat is not what it seems. He spoke of a time in the distant future, a time a lot like right now, when humanity would be drowning in spiritual amnesia, when we'd have endless information but lose touch with wisdom, when our hearts wouldn't ache from bombs but from disconnection. In that time, he said, there would be certain beings, not in robes, not with halos, but wrapped in fur. They wouldn't preach. They wouldn't need to be worshipped. They'd just be there, purring, watching, waiting. He called them sentinels, placed by divine design. Cayce described how each cat carried a unique vibrational signature, an energetic code tuned specifically to one human being. Like a key cut for a particular lock, their job wasn't to amuse or entertain. It was to guard, not your house, not your wallet, your soul. He spoke of thresholds between worlds, places we can't see, but that cats can walk through like it's nothing. You know how they stare off at nothing? It's not nothing. It's the edge. He said when a cat curls beside you at night, it's not just because your bed is warm. It's because, while you dream, they're standing guard. When they crawl into your lap, it's not just affection. It's because they feel something unraveling in you, and they're working to hold it together. Cayce warned of a wave, a tide of forgetfulness that would cover the planet. We'd forget who we are, what matters, what's real. But these feline guardians, they would stay awake. And when that darkness came, when the great remembering begins, they would be the ones anchoring us back to ourselves. That day, as he whispered these words, Gladys stopped typing. She just stared at him, eyes closed, lips still moving, and felt something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just a reading. It felt sacred. Like it wasn't meant for her generation at all. It felt like it was meant for us. That transcript was archived for decades. Barely anyone read it. Because, let's be honest, Cayce said some out there things. But this one, a prophecy about cats, too strange, too soft, too mystical. Until now. Because now, something is happening. All across the world, in homes, in hospitals, in therapy rooms, cats are doing things textbooks can't explain. They're helping veterans with anxiety, sitting vigil beside the dying, curling beside children who've never spoken and somehow making them smile. And their eyes. Have you noticed those eyes? Deep, steady, unblinking. Like they know something, like they remember something we forgot, like they never left their post. If you're still with me right now, thank you. That means this is resonating. And maybe that's not an accident either, because what Cayce said next wasn't just spiritual poetry, it was specific. He said each cat carries within its cells a unique vibrational code, a signature, not just random, not general, but perfectly tuned to a specific human soul. Just like tuning forks only resonate with a matching frequency, certain souls, feline and human, are meant to find each other, not by choice, but by design, and not to change us, but to stabilize us, to catch the unraveling threads and quietly start weaving them back together again. So now you're probably wondering, is that why your cat picked you? Why they followed you home that one day? Why they stared through the window of the shelter or out of that alley and you just knew? According to Cayce, that wasn't instinct, that was assignment. Cats, he said, aren't just adopted. They arrive. They show up when the veil between worlds thins, when your energy starts sending out a signal that says something in you is breaking open or waking up. And when that signal goes out, their inner compass, something beyond words, something science doesn't have a name for, activates, and they come, because they were built to. This connection isn't logical. It's not emotional in the way we usually understand emotion. It doesn't follow the rules of language. It moves in the undercurrents, through memory, trauma, silence. Cats know when you can't speak. They feel it in their bones when you're smiling on the outside but falling apart inside. They don't need to hear your story. They already know it. And when you begin to shatter, they don't. Cayce believed cats are like soul mirrors. When your energy falls out of alignment, they don't just witness it, they absorb it. They recalibrate it. Ever wonder why your cat insists on sitting on your chest when you're anxious? It's not just because it's warm there. It's because your heart's rhythm is out of tune, and they're syncing it. When they curl up around your head at night, it's not just for comfort. It's because your thoughts are spinning into chaos, and they're there to pull you back. They're not psychic in the way we normally think of it. They're tuned to frequencies of fear, of overwhelm, of grief that sits too deep for tears, of exhaustion that doesn't go away with sleep. And in the moment when you think you can't handle one more thing, they stay. But Cayce also warned about something deeper, a force that wouldn't show up as war or disease, but as spiritual amnesia, a forgetting of who we are, why we're here, what it even means to feel whole. And in that forgetting, the world would get noisier, faster, more disconnected. But cats, they would hold the line. They would become anchors, not for your body, but for your soul. Each cat, he said, carries a vibrational blueprint, a kind of energetic tether. And once they find the human they're meant for, they lock on, and they don't let go. It's not loud. It's not dramatic, but it works. You felt it, haven't you? You come home, wrecked from the day, mentally fried, emotionally frayed, maybe even ready to give up. And then your cat looks at you. Just looks. And something in you pauses, stops unraveling. That's not just comfort. That's connection. That's design. Cayce spoke of a coming darkness, but he didn't mean political chaos or war. He meant the darkness inside, the kind that happens when people forget their own worth, their own light. And he believed cats were a part of the remedy. They don't lecture. They don't give you answers. They don't ask anything from you. They just stay. They stay when friends disappear. They stay when family can't understand. They stay even when you no longer trust yourself. That quiet presence, that soft, unbothered stillness begins to remind you of something, not with words, but with rhythm, that your light was never gone, just dimmed. And maybe that's why your cat came to you. Not because you needed a pet, but because your soul sent out a call, and they were the first to answer. Maybe right now you're still skeptical. Maybe you're thinking, could this really be true, or is it just poetic comfort? I get it. I used to feel the same way, until I heard what I'm about to tell you, because not long ago, a physicist, Dr. Sarah Chen, an MIT-trained researcher, a hardcore skeptic, the kind of person who worships logic and data, ran into something she couldn't explain. Her world was science, particle accelerators, equations, proof. Then, she adopted a cat. Half as a joke, she named him Schrödinger. After the famous quantum thought experiment, you know, alive and dead at the same time. She thought it was clever. But what started as a name turned into a mirror. This cat didn't act like other animals. Schrödinger would curl beside her laptop at night, purring. Nothing strange there. But then, she started noticing something weird. Equations she'd struggled with for days, sometimes weeks, would resolve themselves in her mind after he slept beside her. Not through effort, not through thinking, just there, as if the answers had been inserted into her consciousness overnight. She chalked it up to rest, coincidence, stress dreams, until it kept happening, over and over, and it started to scare her. Because science doesn't like patterns it can't explain. So, she did what any physicist would do. She set out to measure it. She brought out the tools, real equipment used in quantum research labs, electromagnetic field detectors, sensors designed to pick up the faintest fluctuations in energy. And what she discovered changed everything. Dr. Chen started tracking Schrödinger's movements using high-grade electromagnetic sensors, devices sensitive enough to register changes in quantum particle experiments. And when Schrödinger entered a room, the electromagnetic field didn't just shift randomly, it changed form. Not noise, not chaos. It formed patterns, geometric, complex, structured. At first, she thought it had to be machine error, so she recalibrated, replaced the gear, tested again. Same result. Then she brought in backup equipment. Same result. The fields around the cat weren't just reacting, they were intelligent. They mimicked the exact shapes seen in conscious neural networks, even in models of quantum entanglement. Let me repeat that. Her cat's presence was generating patterns that mirrored consciousness itself, without speaking, without moving, without even trying. And it wasn't just geometry, it was frequency too. She measured Schrödinger's purring and found something extraordinary. His purr vibrated consistently at 26 Hz. Why does that matter? Because 26 Hz is the exact frequency proven to accelerate human bone regeneration. It's used in medical treatments for tissue healing. In other words, his body was emitting a therapeutic frequency, naturally, constantly. That's when she realized cats are biological instruments, living, breathing vibrational machines, designed, not trained, to support human healing. Without you asking, without them needing to understand why. Dr. Chen's work expanded from there. She began studying how cats' purring affected human brain waves, particularly in people with anxiety, trauma, PTSD, and the results, staggering. Cats weren't just making people feel calmer. Their purring synchronized human brain waves, lowering stress, easing hypervigilance, even helping trauma survivors regulate their nervous systems. No therapy, no medication, just vibration. She started calling them quantum translators, beings attuned to a kind of reality we're only starting to detect. They weren't reacting to our pain with instinct, they were interfacing with it, translating our inner turmoil into something they could counterbalance. They didn't fix people with effort, they did it by being. And the more she researched, the more she found she wasn't alone. Other scientists, skeptics, data heads, behaviorists were starting to see the same thing. Cats responding to flashbacks in veterans with PTSD. Cats calming autistic children with no training, just presence. Cats who somehow knew when someone was sick before the diagnosis came in. They weren't taught to do this, they just did. Because, as Cayce said, They were built to. All of this led Dr. Chen to one quiet conclusion she never expected to reach. This wasn't just science. It was something brushing the edge of mystery. A place where the physical and metaphysical weren't opposites, but reflections. And suddenly, all those quiet moments, the times your cat curled up beside you when you were falling apart, or watched you from across the room like they knew, didn't feel random anymore. They felt designed, not out of sentiment, but out of resonance. Bioelectric, emotional, spiritual. Your cat's body is a finely tuned consciousness tool. Its vibrations, healing. Its gaze, stabilizing. Its stillness, not passive, but active recalibration. It's not just poetry, it's physics. But don't just take it from scientists. Let's talk about people. Because these stories, they're everywhere, if you know where to look. Tokyo. Hiroshi Tanaka, a financial manager. Burned out. Blood pressure off the charts, not spiritual. Didn't like pets. Until one night, walking home late from the office, he found a stray. Injured, silent. Piercing yellow eyes. He took her in. From that moment forward, everything changed. Every time he got stressed, every time a harsh email came in, she would step between him and the screen. His anxiety? Gone. No meds. No meditation. No therapy. Just her. Within 2 weeks, his blood pressure was back to normal. Within a month, he was smiling again. Laughing. Breathing. He named her Kokai, which means regret. Not because she caused it, but because she took it away. Or take Maria Santos in São Paulo. She grew up with a cat named Luna, a tortoise shell who had been there since she was 5. They'd been through everything together. And as Luna aged, Maria's grandmother, who lived with them, became ill. What no one noticed at first was that every time the grandmother's pain spiked, Luna appeared. Quietly. Always. She'd lie beside her for hours, still, unmoving. Until one day, during one of those vigils, her grandmother passed. Peacefully, calmly, as if she just stepped from one room to another. Maria said she didn't go alone. Luna went with her to the edge, and came back. Or Caleb, an 8-year-old in rural Canada, diagnosed with severe autism. He'd never spoken a word in his life. His parents had tried everything. Nothing helped, until Maple, a rescue cat, amber-eyed, quiet, gentle. Caleb reached for her the moment she arrived. He smiled, and 2 weeks later, he said his first word. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't loud, but it was his. And in that moment, his parents understood something that no textbook could explain. That love, real, quiet, present love, could unlock parts of the soul that even science couldn't touch. And those are just a few stories. They're everywhere, flooding in from New York, New Delhi, Paris, Nairobi. Veterans with PTSD who can't sleep through the night unless their cat is beside them. Elderly people in memory care facilities who light up, truly light up, when a cat curls into their lap, never judging the wrinkles or the forgetting. Cats sitting beside chemo patients. Cats pacing at the door just minutes before bad news arrives. Cats who seem to stare into corners of rooms as if they're seeing something we can't. Some people call it intuition, some call it coincidence. But the ones who felt it, really felt it. They know better. They know this isn't just companionship, it's something older, deeper. And now that long-buried Edgar Cayce, reading from 80 years ago, isn't just some dusty oddity in a Virginia Beach archive. It's starting to look like a quiet truth, a quiet revolution in how we understand healing, energy, and connection. These cats aren't being chosen. They're choosing, matched, timed, assigned. So if you've ever felt like your cat came to you at just the right time, you're not alone. And no, it wasn't just a warm coincidence. It was alignment. Now, here's where it gets even stranger and more fascinating. Because a group of researchers recently decided to put all of this to the test. Scientists, data analysts, animal behaviorists. With access to tens of millions of adoption records, veterinary logs, personal stories, biometric readings. They decided to ask a very specific question. Is any of this measurable? Are cats just showing up by chance? Or is something orchestrating these connections behind the scenes? They weren't looking to prove anything spiritual. This was all about statistics. They fed everything, every variable they could think of, into a quantum neural network. A super advanced AI system built to detect patterns beyond human capacity. And the results? They broke the model. Because what they found was impossible. Cat-human pairings weren't random. They tracked, with eerie precision, across time, location, and emotional state. When mapped across geography and life events, the cats that appeared in people's lives almost always showed up during one of three things: trauma, major life transition, spiritual awakening. Even more incredible, the cats that arrived didn't just fill emotional gaps, they matched them. Different breeds, different backgrounds, different continents. But when researchers mapped the energy profiles of these cats, their behaviors, needs, and temperaments, those profiles mirrored exactly what the humans were missing. It's like they were magnetically drawn to balance the people they found. Not a week too early, not a year too late, but exactly on time. The neural network simulated trillions of alternate outcomes. It ran probability trees that tested every logical explanation for how these matches could happen by accident. The final probability? 1 in 847 trillion. That's right, 847 trillion. For perspective, that's rarer than flipping a coin and landing on heads 50 times in a row, then watching it land on its edge. It's less likely than the number of atoms in the observable universe. Statistically speaking, this isn't coincidence. It's design, and the implications didn't stop there. When genealogical researchers started digging into pet lineages and human ancestry, they noticed something even stranger. Cats that had never met, in different eras and locations, showed nearly identical behavior when paired with humans who shared specific psychological and energetic traits. It was like déjà vu stretched across bloodlines. As if the soul bond wasn't just from this life, but from others. As if we're not being matched randomly in this lifetime, but reconnected again. And again. Across time. They started calling it non-linear destiny, the idea that soul connections aren't tied to one moment or timeline. That phrase stuck with me, because it changes everything. If that's true, if cats are being guided to us, not by chance but by resonance, then all those moments we dismissed as coincidence, they were actually the universe at work. And that's why, when you look at your cat, it sometimes feels like looking into a dream you forgot you had, a name you haven't spoken in centuries, but still somehow recognize. Because your cat isn't just staring at you, they're remembering you. So the next time someone tells you it's just a cat, you won't need to argue. You'll smile. Because how do you explain to someone who hasn't felt it yet that love this timed, this precise, this impossibly perfect, isn't an accident? It's evidence. Evidence that something ancient, intelligent, and loving is still working behind the scenes, and maybe always has been. If your chest feels a little warmer right now, if something inside you is whispering, "I knew it," let that sink in. That's not imagination. That's not imagination. That's memory. That's your soul recognizing a truth it always carried but never had words for. And now, maybe you do. Because when your cat locks eyes with you in that quiet, unblinking way, it's not just a look, it's a reminder. They're not just seeing you, they're holding you, not physically, but energetically, spiritually, as if their stillness is saying, "You're not broken, you're not lost, you're not alone, you're still in here, and I see you." Their gaze is ancient because they are ancient. It's not imagination that their eyes feel older than time. It's resonance. Their soul has been here before. So has yours. And this isn't your first meeting, it's your reunion. Edgar Cayce didn't see cats as accessories or background pets. He saw them as soul guardians, as energetic sentinels positioned at the edge of forgetting, sent to pull us back when we start to slip into disconnection. He believed cats would rise in importance in an age of spiritual amnesia, and that in this age, despite our technology and knowledge, we'd begin to lose the thread of who we are. But when that happened, cats wouldn't judge us. They wouldn't scold or try to fix us. They'd stay. They'd sit beside us in the silence. They'd hold the line when everything else felt like it was breaking apart. And the more the world forgets what matters, the more they remind us without a single word. Maybe that's why your cat came into your life. Not when things were easy, but when things were hard. Not to give you answers, but to stay in the questions with you. And maybe, in your hardest moments, when your thoughts spun into chaos, when your chest felt hollow, when your breath caught in your throat, they didn't try to fix you. They just curled beside you. And that, friends, is holy. That is love in its purest form. Not performative, not conditional, just present. They didn't walk away. They didn't flinch. They stayed. And in doing so, they reminded you that even in your unraveling, even in your doubt, you're still whole. We like to say we rescue them, that we adopt them, that we're the ones who give them a second chance. But what if it's the other way around? What if they've been rescuing us, quietly, patiently, one moment at a time, one purr at a time, one pause at the doorway, one soft glance across the room? And it's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's real. Because underneath the science, beneath the metaphors and the stories, is something that every one of us has felt but never been able to prove. That love doesn't always need to be spoken to be heard. So if something in this message stirred something in you, if a memory rose up or a moment clicked or your heart just said yes, you're not alone. You're not the only one who's felt it. And your story matters. So I hope you'll share it. Maybe drop a comment below. Share that one time your cat just knew. The night they came closer when you didn't even realize you needed them. The way they stared at you like they'd been waiting. Because someone else out there is still wondering if what they're feeling is real. Your story might help them remember. And if this message found its way to you today, maybe you were meant to hear it. Because around here, we don't just tell stories, we remember them. And if you haven't already, I hope you'll subscribe. Not just to support this channel, but to stay connected to this kind of truth, to this kind of remembering, because there's more to come, more stories that don't just entertain, but awaken, because you didn't come here just to listen. You came here to not forget, you came here to remember, and your cat, they've known that all along.